Hey everybody, welcome to Geometry, Section 9.2, Reflections. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to reflect a point or shape across a given line. And usually that line is either the x-axis, the y-axis, the line y equals x, which is a perfectly diagonal line, or it might also be the origin, or any vertical or horizontal line. So if you take a look in your notes, there's ways of telling how to get that point to reflect across that line. So for instance, if you want to take a coordinate and reflect it across the x-axis, if you're given the point A, B, just two random numbers, the way you reflect that point across the x-axis is to change the sign on the y-coordinate. Okay, so if you have the point 3, 2, then if you reflect that, it'd be 3, -2. Likewise, if you want to reflect across the y-axis, you change the sign on the x-coordinate. So make sure you make that distinction. When you reflect across the x, you change the y. When you reflect across the y, you change the x. If it's the line y equals x, that perfectly 45-degree angle line, all you have to do is just take your two coordinates and flip-flop places. So again, if you had the coordinate 3, -2, or 3, 2, it would be 2, 3. If you want to reflect across the origin, all you do is change the sign on both of them. So 3, 2 would become -3, -2. And if it's some other vertical or horizontal line, there's no magic formula to it. All you have to do is, if your point's right here, and here's your line, count how many spaces over it is, and then count how many other spaces on the other side of that line. And then it'll mirror over. Okay? So let's go ahead and hop to those notes and see how to do some of this stuff. All right, so if we take a look at the notes, we start off a blank is a transformation that does not change the shape or the size of a figure. You might remember that from last lesson, and that word we're looking for is isometry. Now, in the notes, we kind of hit that word a little bit hard, but you're not going to be tested over that word on a test or a quiz. Question number 1, tell whether each of these is a reflection or not. So, does it look like in part A that I took that first figure and just flipped it over? No, it looks like I took that first figure and just slid it over. So no, that is not a reflection. That is a translation. Okay, part B. Looks like I start off with a C shape, and if I flip that over, does that make the other thing? Sure does. Matter of fact, if I were to draw a line right down the middle, that's called our line of symmetry. Okay, yeah, that looks like the exact same thing, just flipped over. All right, part C, is that a reflection? At first glance, it kind of looks like it. But nah, something's just a little bit off about it. Okay? Like specifically, if I were to draw a line down the middle right here, this little leg, does it match this leg? No, it doesn't. So honestly, it looks more like a rotation than it does a reflection. It looks like the same shape, just instead of being flipped over, it looks like I kind of twisted it to get it into that second position. So I'm going to say no to this one. And part D, do I have the same shape? It looks like it. And if I draw a line right down the middle there, that looks like our line of symmetry. So I would say yes. Now, if it weren't for the pandemic, we would learn how to take a pencil, a ruler, a protractor, and be able to take that shape and flip it over that line. But instead, let me just give you a quick demonstration. Here I've recreated something similar to it. So with this computer program, it's actually very easy. You click what you want to reflect, click what you want to flip it across, which in this case is that line, and there you go. So if I were to move one of these original points, it would change the mirror object. Which, by the way, we didn't talk about this in the previous lesson, but the figure that you start off with, what we have right here, this first triangle, that's called the pre-image. And you would think this other thing would be called the post image. We just call it the image. So here's the image we created. Here's the pre-image. And as you can see, what you do to the pre-image affects how the image itself looks. Okay? This point could even go across that line. All right? So let's get back to the notes. So I told you that there's several different ways that we can reflect a line: the x-axis, the y-axis, the line y equals x. Now down here in this little chart, this is a very valuable little chart that tells you what to do to your coordinate in order to get it to reflect the way that you want it to. So kind of keep that handy as we move through these next examples. So I've already went ahead and put these original shapes on there. If you want to pause the video and do that yourself, you're more than welcome to. But it says, reflect the figure with the given vertices across the given line. So I've already plotted the points, made the shape, and I want to reflect it across the x-axis. So the x-axis tells me that I keep my x-coordinate the same. I just change my y-coordinate to the opposite sign. So x prime will be 2, comma, positive 1. Y prime will become negative 4, comma, positive 3. And z prime will stay 3, comma, negative 2. So now let's go ahead and plot those points and connect them and see how that relates to our pre-image. So 2, 1, negative 4, 3, and 3, negative 2. Let's go ahead and connect these. And hopefully it looks like the exact same thing, just flipped upside down. There we go. I like it. The pink shape is the exact same thing as the black shape, just flipped upside down. Okay? Let's try another example. So I've already created triangle RST. This time they want us to reflect it across the line y equals x. So if you don't know, the line y equals x is this perfectly diagonal blue line. Okay? So let's take a look at our notes. What does it say about y equals x? It says you just take your x and y coordinates and just flip-flop them. So r prime will become positive 2, negative 2. S prime will become 0, comma 5. And t prime becomes negative 1, comma 3. Now let's plot those points. So 2, negative 2, 0, 5, and negative 1, 3. And there we go. Might have to take your piece of paper and kind of flip it diagonal and look at it and say, oh, okay, I see it now. All right. But yeah, it's the exact same thing, just flipped across that blue line. Now that ends our notes. However, there's a few examples not on here that will be on tests and quizzes, so I do want to go over that. What happens when it's not one of these things? What happens if it's just a random vertical or a random horizontal line? So you might want to get out a separate sheet of paper and follow along with what's going on here. So here I have triangle ABC, and I'm going to reflect it across the point, or across the line x equals 3. So let me go ahead and just draw that line real quick. So x equals 3. I go to 3 on the x-axis, and I make a vertical line. Let me make a nice line here. Okay, so I'm going to reflect this triangle across those points. So here's what I'm going to do. If point A is right there, I can count over 1, 2. It's 2 places away from that line of symmetry. So then I'm going to count 2 more places over and just plot that point, and that's going to be my A prime. I'll do the same thing with B and C. B is 1, 2, 3, 4 spots away from that line. So then I'll count over 1, 2, 3, 4 more. Do the same thing with C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'll just connect those points. And there you go. You can see my shape is clearly a perfect reflection across that line. Okay? Now, on the test and quiz, it'll also want you to write what is A prime, what is B prime, and what is C prime. So let's go ahead and write that out. And before it was, let's figure out the coordinates and then graph it. With questions like these, let's graph it first and then find the coordinates. So A prime is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, comma 2. B prime, looks like I go over 1. Now make sure you do it from the x-axis and the y-axis, not from this little skinny black line, okay? So start here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So 7, 4. Make sure you start from the origin. And C prime is 8, negative 2. All right, let's do another example. So reflect those points across the line y equals negative 2. So let's draw y equals, just so we don't confuse this line with our x and y axis, I'm going to choose a different color. Let's choose bright green. So I go to negative 2 on the y axis and make a horizontal line. All right, let's make our coordinates. A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. B is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And C is only 1, but I'm going up to that line, so I'll go up 1 more. And point C will be on the other side of that line. So now let's go ahead and connect them. All right, and there's my shape, reflected across the line, y equals -2. Let's go ahead and write down those coordinates. So A prime is, looks like 2, -8. B prime is 4, -7. And C prime is 0, -1. Okay. Now, again, we're not going to be using a compass and paper and pencil to do this, so we're just going to have to stick to coordinates. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask me in class. Email me, and let's get this figured out. This is our last section for the before the end of the semester, our last chapter before the end of the semester, so let's finish strong. All right, guys? Have a good one, and I'll see you real soon.